With recent rumors that Wes Ball will not be returning to direct the sequel to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, several names have begun to emerge among fan suggestions of who could take his place. I'm here to take a look at a handful of these filmmakers and rank them according to who I believe would be the best fit for the job. If you like what I do here and want to show your support, be sure to hit the like button on this video. You can also join the Ape Nation Discord server for daily discussions about the franchise, and if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on all things film and entertainment outside of Planet of the Apes, you can check out my other channel, The Real Deal. If you're interested in seeing more of my videos here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. Enjoy the video. Hey everybody, and welcome to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving and are having a great holiday season so far. As I said up top, a few weeks ago, we learned from a fairly reliable source of a new rumor that Wes Ball will not be directing the next film in the Planet of the Apes franchise, aka the sequel to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and so I thought it would be fun to take a look at a bunch of directors and rank them on a tier list based on how I think they would fit and how excited or not I would be if they were to be hired as Ball's replacement. I initially got this idea from YouTuber Cody Leach, who I'm a big fan of and highly recommend you go check out, who did a similar type of video recently for who he would want to direct a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and so I just thought it would be fun to do the same thing but for Planet of the Apes. As for how I went about picking these directors, it was basically a combination of looking through you guys' comments and suggestions, looking around the internet to see who other fans have suggested as directors, as well as just my own personal picks for people who I think are at least within the realm of possibility to get hired for a film like this. Before I get started, I do want to note that there are a few directors that I know a lot of you guys suggested, but I chose not to include for a couple of reasons, mainly because they are just way too big and have no realistic shot at ever signing on to do it. Directors like Steven Spielberg, Guillermo del Toro, James Cameron, Peter Jackson, even Quentin Tarantino was suggested by someone. As much as I love and respect all of these filmmakers, I would just rather focus on others who I think have a more realistic chance of actually taking on the job. So, with all of that said, let's get started. There are 5 tiers that each of these directors could go in. At the very top, we have What a Wonderful Day! Which is for the filmmakers that I think would be the best possible picks for the next Apes movie, and I would have no doubt could make it great. The next one down is This Could Work. These are the directors that I would overall be on board with, but I would maybe need to see a trailer first before getting too excited or hopeful. Then, in the middle of the list, we have 50-50, and these will be the directors that I am overall just mixed on when it comes to doing the sequel to Kingdom. So it could be filmmakers that I might like and respect in some ways, but are ones that I either have certain issues with or might just not be sure if they're right for the job. Then towards the bottom of the list is I'm skeptical, which is exactly what it sounds like. Filmmakers that, if hired, I would be very nervous about the movie and would not feel confident that they would be able to deliver. And finally, at the very bottom of the list is These are the directors that I would have absolutely zero faith in to make a great sequel to Kingdom and would not be happy about or see much of a reason to have any optimism at all. Fortunately, there aren't many directors that will be in there, but there are still a few. I have picked 32 directors for this list. One thing to note is that I did not dig into which ones are already busy or not in 2026 and 2027. I thought about taking that into consideration, but with how much things shift and change in Hollywood and how often filmmakers are in development on or getting ready to shoot on projects but then move things around and do something else instead, I figured I might as well just include as many potential candidates as possible instead of spending too much time trying to figure out who's available or not. So there's a chance some of these filmmakers, regardless of where they rank, would not be able to make the next Apes movie even if they wanted to, but this whole thing is just a fun hypothetical anyway, so ultimately I don't think that really matters here. here. With all of that down, the first director on the list is J.A. Bayona. This is the director of The Impossible, The Orphanage, A Monster Calls, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I think that Bayona has a really great visual eye and knows how to deliver emotionally charged stories, and while I don't think that Fallen Kingdom was a very good movie, his direction in it did elevate it to be much better than the weak script would be otherwise, and making it what I think is easily the best film in the Jurassic World trilogy. A trilogy that I don't think is very good, but one that he was able to make more enjoyable than the rest. He also has a lot of experience working with CG-heavy films with things like Jurassic World and A Monster Calls, and this is exactly the type of blockbuster that he could really thrive in if he was given the next step up. And so for those reasons, I am putting J.A. Bayona into This Could Work. Next up is Neil Blomkamp, who is the director of District 9, Elysium, Chappie, and Gran Turismo. What I will say about Blomkamp is that he knows how to make a movie look visually stunning, and he showed a lot of promise as a sci-fi storyteller with something to say about the world with his directorial debut in District 9. However, Elysium and Chappie were both really hollow, underwhelming, and forgettable in my opinion, and so to me, he's fallen pretty far off as a filmmaker overall. I do think that he bounced back quite a bit with Gran Turismo, which I did enjoy a lot more than I expected to, and so I still think he definitely has talent, but I do think it's a bit of a risk. It's a risk that could pay off huge, or be a big disappointment. And so for that reason, I'm putting Neil Blomkamp in 50-50. Next up on the list is Gina Prince-Blythwoode. This is the director of Love and Basketball, The Old Guard 1 and 2, and The Woman King. I think that she has done some really great work as a dramatic storyteller, but it was The Woman King that showed me that she has the chops for something grander and a lot more epic. Tonally, I think that a film like that shows that she could be a great fit for a sequel to Kingdom that continues the post-apocalyptic action-adventure, but is able to go dark and go deeper into the characters based on what she's done with movies like Love and Basketball and the more dramatic elements of The Woman King. And so for those reasons, I'm putting Gina Prince-Blythwoode into This Could Work. Next up on the list is Aneesh Chaganty, director of Searching and Run. In my opinion, Chaganty is a criminally underrated filmmaker who made one of my favorite movies of all time in Searching. I also really liked Run, but Searching is genuinely one of the most innovative and emotionally stimulating movies that I have seen in the last 10 years. He's shown that he can tell compelling, emotionally character-driven stories, which is something that some fans wanted more of in Kingdom compared to the Caesar films, and he's also incredible at building tension and piecing a multi-layered story together on screen, and he has the potential to work wonders if given something bigger like Planet of the Apes, and so, for those reasons, I'm putting Aneesh Chaganty into This Could Work. Next up on the list is Mimi Cave, who is the director of Fresh, and to me, Fresh was a pretty interesting film, and I do think that Mimi Cave has talent behind the camera, but I wasn't quite wowed by it like a lot of other people, especially horror fans, seem to be. And she also hasn't shown anything so far that makes me think she could handle a franchise film of this scale. I would want to see her do something with a slightly bigger budget and maybe in the sci-fi or action genre first, before I would want her to do something like Planet of the Apes, and so for that reason, I am putting Mimi Cave into I'm Skeptical. Next on the list is Brian Duffield, who is the director of No One Will Save You. I think that with No One Will Save You, Duffield showed a lot of promise as a director and has a really interesting visual eye. He's great with building tension effectively and making you care about a single character that you follow along with for an entire story. The lack of dialogue in that film, while still able to make the story compelling, was impressive and reminded me a lot of what Rupert Wyatt was able to pull off with Caesar in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. It wouldn't be needed here, of course, but it's still a pretty interesting parallel. One reservation I would have is his experience with CGI. It didn't look really that great in No One Will Save You, which is why the creatures are mostly hidden in shadow, but on the other side of the coin, it does show that he understood what he could and couldn't pull off and found a way to work with what he could get from a lower budget. And I think that that's really impressive. And so, for those reasons, I am putting Brian Duffield into This Could Work. Next up is Drew Goddard, director of The Cabin in the Woods and Bad Times at the El Royale. I think that Drew Goddard is a really awesome filmmaker who I wish would just make more movies because he doesn't make them that often. He spent a lot more of his time and career in screenwriting than directing. That being said, both of the films that he's directed are incredibly fun, inventive, and clever, but still are able to appeal to a wide audience. He's a strong storyteller that knows how to keep you interested, compelled by characters, and been entertained the entire time. And he's someone who's been due for a big IP for a long time now, and I think that he would be a great get for Apes. And so, for those reasons, Drew Goddard is going into This Could Work. Next up on the list is Stephen Caple Jr., director of Creed II and Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. I will be totally honest, I haven't been super impressed by Caple Jr.'s filmmaking so far. I don't think he's a bad director by any means, but for the most part, he's just kind of generic and so far doesn't really seem to have much of an identity as a filmmaker. Creed II to me was okay, but in my opinion was a overall forgettable sequel and easily the worst of the Creed trilogy. And while I didn't hate Rise of the Beasts and it did have a few fun moments, it runs completely out of steam once it hits its mindless CGI robot fight third act by the end. He does have some skill behind the camera, but he isn't really someone I think would be able to make a great Planet of the Apes movie or a great franchise movie in general, as we've seen 2 times already. And so for those reasons, I am putting Stephen Caple Jr. into I'm skeptical. Next up on the list is easily the biggest director so far, and that would be Alfonso Cuarón, director of Roma, Children of Men, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and Gravity. And he is probably the one director on this list that might be a little too high profile, but he has done franchise work before and has never seemed opposed to doing it again. Cuarón is one of my favorite filmmakers to ever live and has never made a movie that I didn't think was incredible. Roma and Children of Men to me are absolute masterpieces. I think Gravity was a stunning piece of visual storytelling, and Prisoner of Azkaban is by far my favorite movie in the Harry Potter franchise. He is a brilliant visual storyteller and is a genius behind the camera. I love his use of one takes, and he knows how to make the world of his movies feel grounded and visceral, yet still have an almost mysticism to them. I think his aesthetic paired with Weta's CGI and what they've done with Planet of the Apes would be beautiful to see, and he knows how to tell thought-provoking, tense, mature stories that can still be fun and exciting and get top-tier performances out of his actors. For all of those reasons, I think that Alfonso Cuarón would be a phenomenal choice for Planet of the Apes, and that is why he is going to go into What a Wonderful Day! Next up on the list is Gareth Edwards, director of Godzilla 2014, The Creator, Jurassic World Rebirth, and Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. I will say that I have not seen his Jurassic World film yet, but I have really liked most of Edwards' films outside of that. I think that he's incredible at world building and handling visual effects, and is great at making the most visually out of any budget, no matter how big or small. He knows how to make a grand and epic looking and feeling sci-fi blockbuster. I do think that he struggles a bit with character and story depth to a degree in some of his movies, but when paired with a strong writer, this has been a lot less prevalent of an issue. And so for those reasons, I think that Gareth Edwards would be a really solid pick for Planet of the Apes, and I'm going to put him into This Could Work. Next up on the list is Lee Isaac Chung, director of Minari and Twisters. Chung has shown in both of his last 2 films that he has the talent in both the intimate dramatic storytelling department with Minari, as well as the exciting, fun, but still high-tension big action blockbuster with Twisters. I think it would be a bit of an unexpected, but pretty exciting choice for Planet of the Apes, and would give him the opportunity to develop his skills on both sides of the ball even further, and so for those reasons, I am putting Lee Isaac Chung into This Could Work. Next is Duncan Jones, director of Moon, Source Code, Warcraft, and Mute. I think that Duncan Jones has a lot of talent as a director, especially in the sci-fi genre, but his more recent track record with Warcraft and especially Mute has been overall really disappointing. His work on Source Code and Moon is excellent, and he's shown that he is capable of telling interesting stories with compelling characters, and has also proven to be solid at action thriller filmmaking. And he also has experience with performance capture and visual effects driven filmmaking with Warcraft, and maybe with a stronger script, he could get back on track and make another great movie, but I would just be a bit nervous that it could be another dud like his more recent movies. And so for those reasons, I'm putting Duncan Jones into 50-50. Next up is Barry Jenkins, director of Moonlight, If Beale Street Could Talk, and Mufasa: The Lion King. The first thing to note is that Barry Jenkins is really good friends with Wes Ball, and he went to film school with him. Jenkins even hosted a Q&A with Ball for Kingdom on the Director's Cut podcast. He also gained a lot of experience working with CGI lead characters and environments on Mufasa, but the performance capture aspect of Apes could appeal more to his preference for working with real actors on real sets, as as opposed to pure CGI and voice work. It also has to be stated that he is a fantastic dramatic storyteller, as seen with his work on Moonlight and Beale Street, who develops his characters well and pulls really strong performances out of his actors, and I think that he could combine that with what he learned from Mufasa, both what to and what not to do. And so for those reasons, I'm putting Barry Jenkins into This Could Work. Next up is Travis Knight, director of Kubo and the Two Strings, Bumblebee, and the upcoming Masters of the Universe movie. I think that Travis Knight is honestly one of the most exciting filmmakers working in the blockbuster space today. Kubo, in my opinion, is Laika Animation's masterpiece. If you haven't seen that film, I beg you, go check out Kubo and the Two Strings. You will not regret it. But beyond that, Bumblebee not only completely revived the Transformers franchise after nothing but mostly awful movies, sorry Transformers fans, but it was also just such a heartfelt, compelling, fun, Amblin-inspired standalone adventure. He's mastered the craft of classic coming-of-age and hero's journey storytelling, which is exactly what we got with Noah's story in Kingdom, and while my one gripe with Bumblebee was that some of the CGI looked a little too cartoony, and I'm not sure how well he would handle a film fully focused on CGI characters, I think that he's earned enough goodwill elsewhere to give him a chance. And so, for those reasons, I'm putting Travis Knight into This Could Work. Next up on the list is Ava DuVernay, director of Selma, A Wrinkle in Time, and Origin. I will say that while I do really like and respect Ava DuVernay as a filmmaker, her Wrinkle in Time film does give me a little bit of pause, seeing as it is her only film that was on the bigger budget side of things. That being said, with how strong of a track record she's had outside of that film, as Selma and Origin were both great, I think she's earned another chance in that realm. She has a strong talent for telling reserved but tense dramatic stories that are effective on the viewer, and while Wrinkle in Time wasn't great, I did think she showed potential and a lot of ambition as a visual blockbuster level storyteller. I would understand the skepticism some might have if she was hired, but I would be really curious and pretty excited by the potential. And so, for those reasons, I'm putting Ava DuVernay in This Could Work. Next up is Francis Lawrence, director of all of the Hunger Games films aside from the original, Water for Elephants, Red Sparrow, I Am Legend, and The Long Walk. In my opinion, Francis Lawrence is one of the most underrated filmmakers working today and deserves to be talked about a lot more than he currently is. He is excellent at building dramatic tension and making you care really deeply about characters, but has also become a really strong action filmmaker who has a lot of experience with both science fiction and the world of post-apocalyptic and dystopian storytelling. His work on the Hunger Games films has honestly gotten more and more impressive to me and has helped it soar into becoming easily the best franchise to come out of the young adult genre boom of the 2010s. And his other films like Red Sparrow, I Am Legend, and especially his most recent film, The Long Walk, have showcased how brutal and intense, but also how emotionally powerful his work can be. He makes blockbuster films that are really fun to watch, take themselves seriously, always have something thematically relevant to say, and I think that those are skills that could translate really well to Planet of the Apes, and so for all of those reasons, I am putting Francis Lawrence into This Could Work. Next up on the list is Jordan Peele, director of Get Out, Us, and Nope. Jordan Peele, of course, has specialized in genre movies with something to say about our world both socially and politically. He has been going bigger with each of his films and has shown that his talent for tension and character-driven storytelling works on the scale of something smaller like Get Out, as well as something much more sweeping like Nope. And while he is more of a horror director, he has dipped his toe into sci-fi with Nope, and with how closely related the two genres are, I think he has the potential to do good work there as well. And so it's because of those reasons I am putting Jordan Peele into This Could Work. Next up on the list is David Lowery, director of A Ghost Story, Pete's Dragon, and The Green Knight. In my opinion, David Lowery is not only one of the best directors on this list, but one of the most underappreciated directors working today, and one of my personal favorites. He is a really talented storyteller who finds unique ways to tell very emotional and human stories. He can make small movies feel big, but can also make bigger movies feel small and grounded and intimate. All of his movies have left me in awe at the filmmaking, both on large and small scales, and his attention to character detail is incredibly impressive. While he he doesn't have a huge amount of experience with visual effects, I did think he did a great job working with the visual effects team for Pete's Dragon and made the creature in that film feel just as believable as the humans. And while I love his smaller films, I can see so much potential for greatness on the blockbuster scale waiting to come from him as a director, especially after what he did with Pete's Dragon, and think that he would be perfect for a more intense and emotionally resonant franchise like Planet of the Apes. And so because of that, I am putting David Lowery into What a Wonderful Day! Next up on the list is Michael Sarnoski, director of Pig and A Quiet Place Day One. Sarnoski has proven to me to be really great with character work and emotionally moving drama from his work on Pig, which was to me one of the biggest surprises the year it came out. And to me, A Quiet Place Day One is one of the rare franchise films directed by an indie filmmaker that actually feels like an indie filmmaker made it. It tells a small-scale, simple, very human story in the midst of an apocalyptic nightmare, but was still able to be a really intense and action-packed sci-fi thriller that left me dying to see what else he could do as a filmmaker. I would love to see him bring those smaller and more intimate and emotional sensibilities to something like Planet of the Apes, and think it would fit well for a more soft-spoken character like Noah. That, paired with his ability to make a thrilling blockbuster that still keeps you highly entertained, could make for something really exciting and maybe even pretty refreshing. And so, I am putting Michael Sarnoski into This Could Work. Next up on the list is Matt Shakman, director of The Fantastic Four First Steps and Cut Bank. And many people also know him as the showrunner of WandaVision. And I'm just gonna be honest, I think that Matt Shakman is a very bland and unexciting filmmaker. He doesn't seem to have any real punch or style to his storytelling, and I am in the minority of people who thought that WandaVision was decent at best. And while I enjoyed Fantastic Four, it's nothing I ever feel the need to see again anytime soon. I do love his work on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is arguably the best sitcom of the 21st century.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
But that show is more about the writing and performances, where Shakman feels like nothing more than a plug-and-play director on it. If he was hired for Planet of the Apes, it wouldn't just get me nervous, I would be genuinely worried and honestly kind of less excited about the next movie in the franchise. I could be proven wrong, but I think this would be a giant mistake. And so, for those reasons, Matt Shakman goes into No! Next up on the list is Dan Trachtenberg, director of 10 Cloverfield Lane, Prey, Predator Killer of Killers, and Predator Badlands. I've talked about Trachtenberg before on this channel and why I think he would be a perfect fit for the next Planet of the Apes movie. I think he's a great director and he has experience with sci-fi franchises like Cloverfield and Predator, and already has a great relationship with 20th Century Studios. He's also shown his ability to get better with each film and evolve in scale, making something bigger and better every time. He's a great storyteller who knows how to balance spectacle, adventure, and compelling drama about characters you grow to really care about, and I think that Planet of the Apes would be the perfect next step for his career if he intends on taking on something even bigger than Predator. And so I think that Dan Trachtenberg would be perfect for Planet of the Apes, and so he is going to go into What a Wonderful Day! Next up on this list is Takashi Yamazaki, who is the director of Godzilla Minus One. While Yamazaki has yet to make an American film, with how Spielbergian his Japanese language Godzilla film is, I feel confident he would be able to successfully make that transition, not to mention he's already been in discussions with some Hollywood studios about making a more mass appeal domestic film. In just one film, he showcased a strong knack for making you care a lot about characters and taking them on a really engaging journey, all while carnage and chaos goes on around them, and telling a story that has something to say about our own world. He made a mostly incredible looking film for such a wildly low budget, which could also really benefit a film like Planet of the Apes, especially in today's filmmaking climate. And so for all those reasons, Takashi Yamazaki goes into This Could Work. Next on the list is Colin Trevorrow, director of Safety Not Guaranteed, Jurassic World Dominion, and The Book of Henry. Look, I don't want to dump on this guy because by all accounts, I've heard that Colin Trevorrow is a really nice person. But I gotta be honest, and I know this sounds harsh, but I think that he is one of the worst studio directors working today. While Trevorrow started out with promise at the beginning of his career with Safety Not Guaranteed, which was a nice little indie film, Jurassic World to me was a lifeless and uninspired franchise reboot that gets by on nostalgia and nothing else, if it even gets by at all. The Book of Henry is one of the most tonally confused movies I have ever seen, and Jurassic World Dominion was so stupid beyond comprehension and so sloppily put together that not even the return of the big Jurassic Park trio could keep me from turning it off before it was even finished. I think that this would be a complete disaster for Planet of the Apes, and barring any sort of miracle would most likely result in the end of this franchise as we know it if he were to take over. Maybe that's hyperbole, but I just think it would be a really big mistake. And so for those reasons, I'm putting Colin Trevorrow into Next on the list is Jordan Vogt-Roberts, director of Kong Skull Island and The Kings of Summer. While I do think that he has talent as a filmmaker and I'm really excited to see what he does with his Metal Gear movie, if it ever actually gets made, I'm not sure that Roberts has the right sensibilities for Planet of the Apes. Though, ironically, he is one of the only filmmakers on this list who has ever actually made a movie featuring a CGI ape. So take that for what it's worth. I do think that he has a strong eye for fun visuals, and I liked his Kong movie more than most people did, but tonally it was kind of a mess that tried to juggle this hyper stylized action movie with a lot of humor while also kind of being this 1970s Vietnam War survival story. It's fun and entertaining to watch in the moment, but I'm not so sure it makes him the right fit for Planet of the Apes. Kings of Summer was definitely a more reserved in terms of tone and overall filmmaking, and I think that he did do a good job at making an endearing coming of age movie, but that didn't really translate once he got a bigger budgeted franchise film. I could see him proving me wrong and working out well, but for now, I'm on the fence. So Jordan Vogt-Roberts is going to go into 50-50. Next on the list is Jon Watts, director of the Spider-Man Home trilogy, Cop Car, and the co-creator of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Honestly, I'm not sure how I really feel about Jon Watts as a director. While I loved 2 of his 3 Spider-Man movies, Homecoming and No Way Home, the filmmaking in those films rarely feels exciting or interesting, and unlike certain MCU directors like Ryan Coogler or James Gunn, who were able to make their films stand out tonally and stylistically, his Marvel movies, for the most part, just looked and felt like, well, every other Marvel movie. However, I did love his work on Skeleton Crew from a storytelling perspective, which is one of the only Star Wars TV shows I've actually thought was really good, and I thought that he did a really great job at telling a sweet, heartfelt, standalone story set in a larger sci-fi fantasy universe. There's totally the chance that he could prove me wrong and make a really great Apes movie that lets him show off more of his flair as a filmmaker, but honestly, I wouldn't be that excited and would have a lot of doubts if he was announced to be the director. And so I'm putting Jon Watts into I'm skeptical. Next up on the list is Chloe Zhao, director of The Rider, Nomadland, and Eternals. In my opinion, The Rider and Nomadland were really powerful and beautifully made films, and I think that even Eternals, while a mess when it comes to the story, showcased Chloe Zhao's talent for effective and sweeping filmmaking that I really love to see. Visually and stylistically, I love what she did when given a bigger budget, and with a tighter script, I think she could have had a true sci-fi epic and one of the best movies in the MCU with Eternals on her hands. Unfortunately, it didn't quite land with me, or most audiences, but I still can see the potential there for what she can do with a blockbuster film. She's also shown that she can successfully make you care about characters and tell a compelling story with them through her smaller films, and I still think that she can work as a franchise filmmaker, so while a lot of people may be skeptical of her if she were to be announced, and maybe I'm wrong on this one, but I think that she has the chops to pull it off. And so, for those reasons, Chloe Zhao is going into This Could Work. Next on the list is Rupert Wyatt, director of The Escapist, The Gambler, Captive State, and of course, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Obviously, Rupert Wyatt already has experience working with the Planet of the Apes franchise, as he is the director who introduced us to Caesar and launched the trilogy that we all know and love. He had some success with his earlier film The Escapist prior to Rise, but in all honesty, he has struggled since Rise as both The Gambler and Captive State underwhelmed. But the project he's been working on for the past few years, Desert Warrior, seems to be his biggest film to date and has me really excited to see it when it finally gets released, which will hopefully be sometime in 2026. While his stumbles post-Apes would make me a little hesitant, he has experience in this world and working with performance capture characters, and I think that this would be a great opportunity for him to bounce back and could make for another great Apes movie overall that I think would actually get the fans really excited, and so I'm putting Rupert Wyatt into This Could Work. Next up on the list is David Yates, director of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, the Fantastic Beasts trilogy, and The Legend of Tarzan. And what I'll say about David Yates is that I really enjoy all of his Harry Potter films to varying degrees, especially the 2 Deathly Hallows films, which I do think are really great. That being said, for the most part, I think his Harry Potter movies pale in comparison to what other filmmakers brought to the first 4 of the series, and I'm just gonna be honest, I absolutely hated his Fantastic Beasts movies. The first one wasn't the worst I've ever seen, but Crimes of Grindelwald might actually be the worst blockbuster I have seen in the 21st century. It's so bad that I didn't even bother watching the third film. And while I didn't think The Legend of Tarzan was terrible, I did think it was overall pretty bland and really forgettable. Yates is good at directing actors and telling a competently assembled story, but his visual style is so uninspired, dull, gray, and lifeless that it drains even his best films of so much life they would have otherwise. I don't think he's a bad filmmaker by any means, but if he was brought on board, I wouldn't have very high expectations beyond it being average or decent at best. Maybe I'm wrong and he could knock it out of the park, but I just don't see it happening. And so, because of all these things, I'm putting David Yates into No! Next up on the list is Ryan Coogler, director of Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther 1 and 2, and Sinners. And I've mentioned this before, but I'm gonna say it again for those who haven't heard me say it. Ryan Coogler is my #1 pick for Planet of the Apes if I had my way and he wasn't busy with anything else. Coogler is my personal favorite director of the modern age and has made, in my opinion, nothing but fantastic movies his entire career, with Sinners honestly still being my favorite movie of 2025. Even Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is easily his weakest movie, which was unfortunately derailed by the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, is still one of the better superhero movies to come out of the last several years. To me, Coogler is completely undefeated when it comes to directors who are able to balance epic, sweeping, large-scale filmmaking with stunning visuals while also telling not just emotionally powerful stories, but also having something thematically relevant and interesting to say weaved throughout the storytelling. He's a master storyteller and someone I could listen to talk about directing for hours, and is 1000% the type of filmmaker who would thrive with a franchise like Planet of the Apes. And if there's anybody I would trust to elevate the next film the same way that Matt Reeves did when he came on board to direct Dawn, it's Ryan Coogler. So for all of those reasons, Ryan Coogler is going to go into What a Wonderful Day! Next up on the list is Alex Garland, director of Ex Machina, Annihilation, Men, and Civil War. Honestly, I would have thought there was little chance this could ever happen until it was revealed that Garland is making an Elden Ring movie, which personally I am really excited about. I thought he wasn't the type of director who was interested in making franchise films or films based on established IP, but apparently he is. If he were to do Planet of the Apes, he would likely bring a much darker and more serious tone back to the table, possibly even more so than War, but I think that could work for the middle chapter of this planned trilogy. While I know some people aren't as high on Alex Garland as of late, I have always been a massive fan, and I think that he's a really gifted, smart, and interesting sci-fi storyteller who takes the material he makes really seriously and gives it a lot of depth. He's able to speak on real-world issues through his filmmaking while keeping things high tension and viscerally entertaining. He's a great filmmaker that I think could do some really interesting and exciting things with Planet of the Apes, so I'm putting Alex Garland into This Could Work. And the final director on my list, who is the person who has by far been most suggested by Planet of the Apes fans to direct a Planet of the Apes movie, is Andy Serkis, director of Mowgli, Breathe, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, the upcoming animated Animal Farm movie, as well as the upcoming Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum. And I just want to say off the top that I know a lot of you have suggested this, and I respect that you think that this would be great, but I just have to be honest. I do not think this would be a good idea at all. I love Andy Serkis. I have talked ad nauseum about how much I love and respect this guy as an actor and as a pioneer of performance capture, and he is honestly one of my all-time favorite performers to ever set foot in front of a camera. But I'm sorry, I just do not think he is a very good filmmaker. Mowgli, in my opinion, was incredibly dull, and I hated the designs of the animal characters, especially compared to Disney's Jungle Book, which came out just a few years earlier and was a significantly better version of that story. I also thought that his Venom film was awful, though to be fair, so is the rest of that trilogy, along with the entire Sonyverse of Spider-Man spin-offs. And while I was curious about his adaptation of Animal Farm, the small amount of footage we've seen has really underwhelmed me, and so far, early reactions to the film from those who have seen it haven't been very good. Maybe he'll finally hit it with his Gollum movie, but I'd be lying if I said I was expecting greatness. However, I do think that his knowledge and admiration for both the art of performance capture as well as the world of Planet of the Apes and the character of Caesar would definitely be a plus that could work well in his favor, but that's not enough for me to overlook his shortcomings as a storyteller. If he ultimately was the one who was chosen, I wouldn't hate it, but I would not have anywhere near as much faith that he would be able to deliver a great film as other Planet of the Apes fans seem to. And so as much as it hurts me, and as much as I still love Andy Serkis as an actor and a person, when it comes to him as a director and as a choice for the next Planet of the Apes movie, I'm gonna put him into I'm skeptical. So guys, that is how I rank all of the possible directors who could be in the running to take over the next Planet of the Apes movie. While you might feel differently about some of these choices than I do, this is just my opinion and ultimately has no bearing on who 20th Century Studios actually ends up hiring, so for now, we'll just have to sit back and wait to see who gets the job. It could be anybody on this list, or it could be somebody completely different. I'm excited to find out who it is either way, but I want to know what you guys think. How do you feel about these potential directors for the sequel to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes? Do you like any of them? Dislike any of them? Is there anybody else out there that I didn't name who you think should be on here? I want to know all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.